This conductor leaves the musicians in the middle of the concert. Look at what's going on. The work starts well. Giovanni Antonini, who is conducting the orchestra, and the Giardino Armónico is calm. He is conducting normally, but suddenly, more or less, in the minute and a half of this video, the musicians begin to get up with the room full. I invite you to watch the reaction of the conductor and the other musicians when almost all of them leave the room. If you watched this video to the end, I explain a little bit about what happened, so you can put yourself in context. This is a work by Franz Joseph Haydn, Austrian composer of classicism. He composed it more or less in 1772. It is a symphony, number 45, called De los Adioses. It is a composition that the Austrian Haydn made to, in some way, protest against his patron, who was Prince Nicolas Esterházes. During the composer's stay at court, he was in charge of about 25 musicians. The orchestra was on the estate of Nicolas Esterházy, and this place was a rather isolated estate. And the work that was done there, generally, kept all the musicians and the composer Haydn himself very far from his family. And not only that, but they were there for a long time. In other words, as long as the prince wanted to prolong his stay on that estate, they were going to be away from their family. They could not return. Because at every evening that the prince made, the musicians had. Let us remember that in this transition between Baroque and Classicism, the courts had at their disposal, or kept within their entourage, all the musicians. That is, the court paid all the musicians. Therefore, they were a little. The musicians would have to be a little helpful. They were a little, not slaves, but domestic servants. Practically. There are even some anecdotes of Haydn saying that he had to eat in the kitchen alongside the common court clerks. Along with those who cleaned, those who cooked, or those who did other chores, he, as a musician, as musical director, also had to eat in the kitchen, at least for a while. Well, this symphony is in repudiation of all this that was happening at the estate of Nicolas Esterházy, and what Haydn and the musicians wanted was to tell the prince in some way that they were tired, that they were fed up, and that they wanted to go see their family, that it had been too long that they had been away from their family environment. So what Haydn came up with, as a rather political way, was to compose a symphony and tell the prince in the middle of the concert that they were tired and that they really wanted to leave. This little fragment that we hear, which is from the Presto Adagio, which is the last movement of this symphony, number 45, ends with this finale, slowly, where each musician, after playing the melody, which is the main melody, let's say, for each instrument that passes by, they are removed from the room. In Haydn's time, each instrumentalist played his part. They blew out the candle on his music stand. They picked up their scores and left the stage. In the end, there were only 2 violins left playing with mute. It is said that it was Haydn himself and the concertmaster, who would be the first violin, who was Luigi Tomasini. The 2 of them were left on stage because they were the only characters, let's say, the only musicians who had been allowed to take the family to the Esterházy's estate. According to the anecdote, the prince understood the message and finally ordered that the entire entourage of musicians could travel to see his family. If you like this story, follow me on the channel and we'll meet in the next video to continue telling classical music stories.